"Don't touch me there," she cried, but the gunslinger's hands wouldn't stop trembling. They said Elias Cartwright never missed his mark, but when he touched her that night, his hands shook like a man facing death. What truth could make the deadliest gunslinger tremble? The desert was cold under the moon, silver light spilling across the sand like a quiet curse. A young woman stumbled barefoot, her torn dress clinging to dust and blood. She had begged for mercy once already. Now she begged again, her voice raw, trembling. "Don't touch me there," she cried, clutching herself against the rough hands that had bound her. But it wasn't the outlaw holding her anymore. It was the gunslinger who found her, his hands shaking so fiercely he could barely cut the rope. Elias Cartwright, once feared along the border towns, had seen violence enough to harden any man. Yet here, in the silence of the desert, his weathered hands betrayed him. His revolver never quivered in a duel, but the moment he touched her bruised wrists, he shook like a boy. She looked up, wide-eyed, confusion burning in her fear. "Why are you trembling?" she whispered. Elias didn't answer. He only pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders and scanned the horizon, his jaw locked. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes cried. Somewhere further still, riders moved fast, their dust trails faint against the night. He hoisted her onto his horse, though she fought at first. Trust wasn't given so easily in the Wild West. She spat, "You'll regret saving me." But Elias didn't flinch. He'd already heard enough curses in his lifetime. He swung up behind her, arms encircling her slight frame, every muscle taut with restraint. The desert stretched wide, stars glinting like cold steel. Each hoofbeat carried them deeper into uncertainty. She leaned forward, trembling still, whispering words he couldn't ignore. "They'll come for me. They'll kill you too." Elias's heart thudded harder. He swallowed, voice hoarse. "Then let them ride." But even as he said it, his hands kept trembling on the reins. Was it fear? Was it memory? Or something else? Something he hadn't felt in years. The desert wind didn't answer. It only howled through the canyons like a preacher's warning, as if daring them both to survive the night. The stallion's hooves struck sparks on the hardpan, the sound echoing off the canyons like drum beats of war. Elias kept his jaw set, eyes sweeping the horizon for shadows. Every mile stretched long, every ridge felt like a pair of watching eyes. The woman slumped against him, half from exhaustion, half from mistrust. Her name, she finally said, was Clara. Just Clara. She gave it reluctantly, as though names were dangerous in a land where whispers traveled faster than bullets. Elias didn't press her. He had his own ghosts, and they weren't worth repeating under open sky. The prairie night bled into dawn. A red sun cracked the horizon, spilling light over sagebrush and dust. With the morning came thirst. Elias pulled the horse toward a stream that carved a scar through the earth. Clara's hands shook as she drank, the cool water staining her lips. Elias knelt nearby, his revolver resting on his knee. He didn't trust the silence. Silence was where ambushes lived. "Why are you helping me?" she asked at last, her voice raw but steady. Elias didn't look at her. "Because I couldn't ride past." Her eyes narrowed. She wasn't convinced, and neither was he. Mercy wasn't free. Out here, it was a debt someone always came to collect. As they mounted again, Clara stiffened. On the ridgeline, 3 riders cut against the sky, dark figures watching. Elias felt it too, the weight of pursuit. He spurred the horse, dust rising around them. By noon, a lonely ranch house came into view, weather-beaten boards leaning against the wind. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. Elias led the horse inside the corral, his hand twitching near his gun belt. He didn't miss the way Clara scanned the place like she'd been here before, or like she expected someone else to. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and ashes. Elias laid his hat on the table, poured water into a tin cup, and handed it to her. She took it, her eyes never leaving his trembling hands. "You're hiding something," she murmured. Elias looked away. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying faint hoofbeats. He knew the riders hadn't turned back. Not yet. The days that followed moved slow, stitched together by silence and small acts. Elias patched the corral fence with weathered planks, while Clara swept dust from the cabin's floorboards. Neither spoke much. Words felt heavy, like bullets. Spent too freely, they left you empty. But the silence wasn't empty. It carried weight. Each time Elias brushed past her in the narrow doorway, she stiffened. Each time he caught her stealing a glance at him while he stoked the fire, he felt the tremor in his hands threaten to return. At night, Clara lay on a cot by the hearth, pretending to sleep. Elias knew. He could feel her stillness, too perfect, too deliberate. He sat by the window, rifle propped close, watching the dark. Every so often he whispered things not meant for her ears, regrets, names, prayers that turned sour in his throat. Clara heard them anyway. In the morning she found a tin plate waiting, bread, beans, jerky softened with broth. She stared at it a long while before eating. When she caught Elias watching, she whispered, "Why do you care if I eat?" His answer was simple, rasped like gravel, because no one cared if I did. The chores became their language. He hauled water. She mended shirts with thread too thin. He chopped wood, each swing of the axe echoing like a confession. She placed a blanket over his shoulders when he nodded off by the fire, pretending she didn't notice his hands trembling even in sleep. Trust was fragile, but it was forming. She began to hum while she worked, soft melodies from somewhere back east. Elias pretended not to listen, but the music tugged at him, pulling loose threads of memory. He remembered a woman once, her smile, her voice, and how quickly both had been stolen. Out here on the frontier, even silence could be dangerous. Every glance, every choice carried a price. And if you've been gripped by this tale so far, don't let it ride past you. Saddle up with us by subscribing now. More stories of love, betrayal, and survival are waiting, and the next twist may strike when you least expect it. Then came the shadows. At sunset, Clara froze at the window. 3 silhouettes rode the ridgeline again, watching. Elias followed her gaze, jaw tightening. He closed the shutters, voice low but steady. "They're not just after you, are they?" he asked. Clara's silence was answer enough. That night the wind rattled the shutters, carrying the faint jingle of spurs and the promise of violence drawing nearer. The knock came at midnight. Not gentle, not uncertain. 3 heavy blows that rattled the door like rifle fire. Elias was already awake, boots on, revolver drawn. Clara sat up, her eyes wide with the terror of someone who'd been found at last. "Stay back," Elias whispered, though his own voice shook. The door creaked open before he could bar it. Moonlight spilled across 3 men in dust-stained coats, pistols hanging low. Their leader stepped forward, a scar running down his jaw like a lightning strike. "Cartwright," he drawled, eyes sliding past Elias to Clara. "We've been told you picked up something that ain't yours." Clara flinched. Elias leveled his revolver, though his fingers trembled against the iron grip. The outlaw grinned. "Hands shaking? That's new. You going soft, Cartwright?" The taunt cut deep, but Elias didn't blink. He'd carried his shame for years, the tremor that haunted him since the day he pulled the trigger too late and buried the woman he loved. That truth lived in his hands, every shake a memory of failure. Clara stepped forward, voice quivering. "Don't do this, Elias. They want me." "Let me go." But Elias didn't lower the gun. His voice was raw, each word dragging like barbed wire. "I already let one woman go." "Not again!" The cabin exploded into violence. Gunfire split the night, boards splintering, glass shattering. Elias fired, the recoil tearing through his arms. One outlaw dropped, clutching his chest. Another burst through the window, shards raining down. Clara scrambled for cover, screaming as bullets chewed the walls. The leader lunged, slamming Elias against the table. The revolver slipped from his hand, skidding across the floor. His hand shook wildly as he grappled, knuckles splitting, breath ragged. The outlaw sneered, pressing a knife close. "You can't hold steady, Cartwright." "You never could." But Clara wasn't frozen anymore. She grabbed the fallen revolver, her small hand steadier than his. With a crack of thunder, the leader staggered back, shock carved into his scarred face before he hit the floor. Silence followed, thick and heavy, broken only by Elias's ragged breath. Clara's hands now shook like his. Together they stood in the wreckage, firelight flickering on splintered boards and blood. And outside, in the distance, more hoofbeats thundered. Dawn came blood-red, staining the horizon as if the sky itself had been shot through. The cabin stood broken, its shutters hanging, floor littered with splinters and ash. Elias sat slumped against the wall, knuckles raw, shirt torn. Clara knelt beside him, her breath shaky, hands trying to bind the cut on his arm. "You should have let me go," she whispered, voice thick with guilt. Elias shook his head, eyes hollow but fierce. "I don't let go anymore." His trembling fingers brushed hers, not in command, but in confession. The secret he carried, the reason his hands always shook, no longer hid in silence. She'd seen it. She'd lived it. Outside, the hoofbeats grew louder. A dozen riders this time, their shadows long in the rising sun. Clara's heart clenched. "We can't fight them all." Elias rose slowly, every movement laced with pain, yet his voice steadied. "We don't fight them all. We stand. Sometimes that's enough." He stepped out onto the porch, rifle braced in his unsteady grip. Clara followed, refusing to be left behind. The riders circled, dust swirling around them like a storm. Their leader raised a hand. "Cartwright! Give us the girl, and maybe we'll leave you breathing." Clara's voice cut through the morning air, sharp as glass. "You'll have to kill us both." The circle tightened, rifles leveled. For a heartbeat, time stretched thin. Elias's finger curled on the trigger, his hands trembling like leaves in a storm. He closed his eyes, saw the woman he lost, saw Clara's bruised wrists, saw the truth he'd tried to bury. When he opened them, the shake was still there. But it no longer felt like weakness. It felt like fire. The first shot cracked. Dust flew, horses screamed. Chaos erupted, but Elias didn't falter. He fired through the tremor, each bullet finding its mark as though guided by something greater than steady hands. Clara stood at his side, revolver barking flame. When the smoke cleared, the prairie was littered with silence and bodies. The survivors rode hard away, fear chasing them faster than bullets. Elias lowered his rifle, chest heaving. Clara touched his arm, her eyes shining with something more than fear. Gratitude, trust, something dangerous and fragile. Love, perhaps. The West wouldn't let them rest long. But for now, in the blood-red dawn, they had chosen each other. And sometimes, that was the only verdict that mattered. When the dust settled, Clara and Elias chose each other. And maybe that's the hardest choice the West ever offered. Love in a land that swallows hope. If their courage stirred something in you, don't just leave this story behind. Like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell, because out here in the Wild West, love may be rarer than water. But it always finds a way.